Hey guys, welcome to Double Shot of Steelers. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This program is presented to you by our friends at FanDuel. It's the NFL trade deadline. Like, literally this split second. It is exactly 4 p.m. on Tuesday, November 4. It's also Election Day. Get out and vote. Just because the deadline hits doesn't mean everybody knows everything. If you're new to the trade deadline world of professional sports in general, it can be announced well after the deadline that something occurred. The only thing that the deadline actually represents is that the league has to be fully informed of your transaction. It has to go through the proper channels. Only the league, in this case, the National Football League, needs to know that you've made the exchange that you've intended to make. That's it. We don't have to know anything. It can get to us whenever, or when the league deliberately leaks the thing to people who pose as insiders but are really just connected to the league through the network and the various rights fees and so forth. But I digress. As of this split second, also, there's no information to suggest that the Steelers have or haven't done anything. So let's, before anybody starts freaking out in one direction or the other, let's just see how things play out. In the interim, Mike Tomlin had his Tuesday session today over on the South Side, and he talked at length and without any holding back about a lot of the changes that occurred on the defensive side of the football this past week. And I would imagine he had much motivation to do so, as opposed to saying something like he doesn't want to just, peel back the curtain and show us everything. And he was happy to talk about this one. And here's a little bit of that.
I think it's both. I think it always is. I think all the decisions that you make in terms of menu and menu size are usually about yourself first and what you're going through, and then what's required to strategically match up against opponents.
Mike, do you anticipate keeping it simple again this week?
New week, new issues. We'll see.
Well, to that same vein, there definitely would seem to be a schematic change in terms of like too high versus not blitzing as much. Was that primarily of how you wanted to attack the Colts, or is that also a reaction to what you've been seeing in recent weeks?
Week in and week out, we make decisions based on the variables of that week, and so certainly the things that we did last week were relative to the Colts and our circumstance.
And that's, listen, we're critical of him whenever it's merited, I'd like to think. We're also going to say, hey, nice job when he does that. This isn't all that complicated an occupation. You see something, you judge it on its own merit. You don't go in with preconceived notions. You try to eliminate as much as a human can natural bias, and you say, hey, good job. Good job. They went up against the number one team in the NFL. They went up against a team that was scoring almost at will against a bunch of its opponents. And this was where they ended up. This was where they ended up. All they did was put together the best performance they had all year long. And credit to Tomlin, credit to Terrell Austin, credit to Arthur Smith on the other side of the football. You heard Aaron Rodgers go out of his way to say that Arthur's game plan was really good. They just didn't execute it all that well, and they didn't. All those drops and everything else that was going on. But these guys made the changes that were necessary to win that game. And they did that similarly before the game in Dublin and facing the Vikings. Now, here's what I hope would be equally obvious out of all this. Try doing something like this every week. You don't have to switch up everything. You can live as you live and learn along the way. Long season and all that. But you don't want there to be tons of stuff on tape that everybody knows is coming, that the Chargers know is coming. that the team that they face after that they know it's coming. I appreciated hearing from some of the players this week that they don't need to be surprising everyone. They don't need to be changing stuff all the time. But you do need to make the adjustments that need to be made. And we've now seen 2 quality examples of that from this coaching staff. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Chris Halleck.
For those of you who are doing real work in construction, in a warehouse, if you're a mechanic, you want reliable, comfortable gear to help you perform well on the job. Brunt Workwear's got you. They've got waterproof boots, safety toe, soft toe, pull-on, lace-up, whatever you need. You can wear them to work, and if they're not right for you, send them back. I don't know of any other brand doing that. Brunt was tired of the workwear brands out there cutting corners. You work too hard to be stuck in uncomfortable boots that don't hold up. So they built something better. Boots that are insanely comfortable and built for any job site. For a limited time, our listeners get $10 off. Just head to bruntworkwear.com. Use the code DK Sports and you're good to go. After you order, they'll ask you where you heard about Brunt. Do us a favor here at DK Pittsburgh Sports and tell them it was from this show.
By the way, you guys are the worst detectives of all time, meaning all you people who watch this show. How many, what do we have here, Chris? We have 2,737 people in on this program right now. Not one of you recognize Mark Cuban just walking in during that opening segment. Not one of you. I just want that on the record. I at least saw who.
I think you're just mad because you didn't see him behind.
I saw him. I wasn't going to interrupt the show.
Oh, Mark,
what do you
is
think?
not important enough for it.
He's not. This isn't Shark Tank.
It's a good thing I wasn't there because we would have gotten into a conversation about the Luka Doncic trade. So
the who trade? Oh,
yeah.
He had nothing to do with that. You know that.
I know
He
that.
wanted an Aaron Rodgers jersey.
The boss says he wanted an Aaron Rodgers jersey. Don't sell jerseys here. So he walked right back out. But it was like right here, like right over the. I'm not saying this as if some holy presence was bestowed upon us or whatever. But
it was really weird for me because I really know him, right? And I'm like, hey, nice surprise. Meanwhile, he's like, who the hell are you?
No, but I'm just saying, not one person. Not one. Don't do this after the fact. Michael Cross says, "Oh, I recognized the person, but I couldn't clearly see who it was."
That's
No,
funny.
you didn't. You're the worst detectives of all time. That's what I have to say. Actually, I wasn't 100% sure it was him either. Oh, my. Steelers versus Chargers week in Los Angeles is finally here. It's time to check out the latest odds, futures, and win totals on the FanDuel Sportsbook. If you think the Steelers are headed to the Super Bowl and that they're going to beat the Chargers along the way, lock in your bets today. Whatever your game, the FanDuel Sportsbook delivers the latest lines, futures, and specials so that you can join in on all of the action. Skunkworks says that I'm killing him. No, man, I'm just being correctly. This is like I said about Mike Tomlin in the opening segment. You got to be able to handle the criticism when you can take it. You guys are the worst. These are 4K cameras right there. He's right next to my head there, you know? And you're looking at him and you're like, Did they do anything, Chris?
No.
Are we done? Did they put out an announcement?
Done. That no. I mean, I don't think they would need to put out an announcement because it's not like teams come out and say, you know, put out a press release saying we did not acquire anybody ahead of.
Well, actually, the Penguins and the Pirates both do that. That's why I was asking.
Really? That's interesting.
Well, they don't say we didn't do anything. What they say is we're about to get you so-and-so to be available for an interview.
Omar
the Steelers don't do interviews.
Yeah.
So there
Omar
really
Khan doesn't
is.
talk in the middle of the season.
Yes. Stu asked if we knew that Mark Cuban was from Pennsylvania. Yeah, I mean, he's from Mount Lebanon. He's 10 minutes down the road.
Yeah.
And I'm friends with his brother, Brian, who's a big supporter of our company, by the way. A really, really, really good dude, too.
Oh, we did get a release. We got the typical
do
game
want to-
release for the regular
wanna
season
report
Week 10
that I'm
matchup
like-
against the Chargers.
Say that again.
We just got a release. The Steelers regular game release for the regular season Week 10 matchup against the Chargers. That's which comes out every week for every matchup. It's the fans won't get the joke, but it's the typical just game release that comes out with the depth chart and all that stuff, all the media notes for the upcoming game, and yeah, so that's it. No trades.
Rainer wants to know if you're surprised that no trade was made. I'm gonna start by saying I never get surprised by the Steelers adopting a conservative posture. That would take me many years of Omar Khan to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and Omar has already broken all kinds of molds in this vein, just in the couple of years that he's been at the helm. And at the same time, I also know that I didn't sense some immense need unless there was going to be some sort of fit. And I know it can be exasperating for fans, especially when you watch other teams make moves, especially when they're grossly lopsided. As a couple of them really were. How do you get Quinnen Williams just like that? Like, how does that team move Quinnen Williams? Let's just start with that. Like, how did it happen?
They are going. Obviously, the Jets are. Okay. The one thing I will give the Jets credit for is if you're going to sell and you're going to try to rebuild and you're going to tear it down. And they got 3 first-round picks and a second-round pick for Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner. And Sauce hadn't been playing that well, not to the level that he had in previous seasons. So they might have gotten might have gotten quite the haul for Sauce Gardner, just because of the name more than the actual performance. So I actually give the Jets credit for that. Now, you might think, okay, well, why did they sell Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson and all these guys? Maybe they just think with their ages and everything, they got to hold on to somebody. They have to meet the salary cap floor. They have to, do all these things. I don't know. But the Steelers not making a move, it's not the most surprising thing, obviously. But at the same time, well, first off, we do need to give them a little bit of credit for getting Kyle Duggar last week. That's still a trade. I mean, it didn't happen on trade deadline day, but it's still a move that was made to address the secondary at a time in which the secondary was absolutely terrible. So they did make a move. Now, sure, they had the injury to Deshaun Elliott, and that might have been the catalyst for making that move, but they still made a move. They still addressed the need. But not getting a receiver, because that's not what I know everybody wants. This is a team that literally uses more tight ends than anybody else. They're tied for 12th in the NFL in scoring right now. I understand. Listen, Omar is building up he's building a plan. He has a plan to have as many assets for the future. Do you want him giving away those assets to get a rental receiver like Jacoby Myers that might not work out for a Super Bowl this year?
Yeah, I think one of the things that happens in these discussions in general, Chris, and I'm talking about just the way they're talked about in public, is there's a perception that the Steelers either wanted to make a trade or didn't want to make a trade. That's just not at all how this goes.
Oh, gosh.
They're looking at what the various offers are.
Mm-hmm.
And if the offers make sense, if it's something that fits, then you go ahead and do it. It's not about making some sort of decision in advance. I'm already seeing that, a couple of jabs at Mike Tomlin here in the chats, because Tomlin said, I like to go shopping. And everyone said, why did he say he wanted to go shopping and then not make a trade? There's nothing fit. There's nothing fit. And to your point, Chris, about the Steelers and Omar specifically wanting to retain their future assets and not just keep forfeiting draft picks and so forth along the way. Man, I know we do a lot of parallels here between them and the Penguins, but that's the one that hits the hardest. Mm-hmm. Even though you want to take the season that's in front of you seriously, as the Steelers and the Penguins both obviously getting off to really, really good starts and being competitive, both teams have made up their minds in advance that we're not forfeiting future assets along the path. And that's absolutely a factor in this. If you saw, Sauce Gardner for, was it 2 first-rounders?
Yeah.
Okay. Sauce made himself an impression and a half as a rookie. We talked about this when we were up in New Jersey, Chris, remember?
Yeah.
And then what ended up happening? He's not just a guy, but he's not that guy. But he's got the name. He's got the best nickname maybe in sports.
He's got his own sauce at Buffalo Wild Wings.
So it's the sauce?
Yeah.
What do they call it? I don't know. I'm asking.
I really think it is just the Sauce Gardner sauce.
So when Philip says here, so you guys think the weapons that we have on offense is enough? No, it's never enough. But what you have to balance. I'm not sitting here defending them, okay? Because I don't know what the offers are. That's another thing here. We don't have, like, Omar's not sitting here with us saying, well, the Cardinals offered this and the Seahawks offered this. So we don't have the information. We don't have a millifraction of the information to make the judgment as to whether or not you needed to make a trade. I could have told you months ago that they weren't going to be doing this in a way that they'd be giving up first round, second round picks. How many total trades today, Chris? Less than 10? Single digits?
I think the one at the last minute, which was the Chargers acquiring Trevor Penning from the Saints, made it 7, which is still a pretty high number for an NFL trade deadline.
10's the all-time high.
Yeah.
I saw that earlier today. 10 is the all-time high. So there's a reason teams don't do this much. There's a reason that teams are protective of their draft picks and should be, because NFL draft picks are more valuable than draft picks in any other sport for what I would hope would be very obvious reasons.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to do some generalization here and say they needed to make a trade.
Well, and again, just because one didn't happen doesn't mean that Omar wasn't on the phone and making phone calls. I can almost guarantee, and I don't have it verified by a source, but I can almost guarantee that Omar Khan was in the Jacoby Myers running. Now it might have been, he might not have been willing to part with a 4th round pick and a 6th round pick, which is what the Jaguars gave up to get him. And you might hear 4th and 6th, and you're like, that's nothing. You should have given that up. But again, look at what the Steelers are building just in next year's draft. And what if they do part with whatever they need to part with? And listen, like, you can look at, like, what I like to look at, which is when the Chiefs traded up for Patrick Mahomes and all it took was a future first and a current year 3rd. And you're like, well, if that's all it takes, well, we also just saw the trades that went down this past draft and how they included multiple first round picks. You might need more. And if the Steelers are really dedicated to getting their quarterback of the future in next year's draft, or at least want to have the opportunity to get their quarterback of the future in next year's draft, they need to have as much firepower as they possibly can to not just get that quarterback, but to make sure that that quarterback isn't the only player they take in the entire class. They need to have an entire draft class.
Right. And that's why David says, well, we got 12 picks. You could give up 1. You can say that if you're looking at them just as draft picks as opposed to assets. Again, you get to the 2026 draft, and to Chris's point about the quarterback, if this is the draft where you're going to make sure you position yourself as best as you can to get the quarterback that you want to enter that process with all of the assets that you can.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're tired, as a lot of people are, of not having had your future franchise type quarterback, now, what is this, year 7 of that year 6? It's been a while. I mean, you go back to Ben being healthy to open the 2019 season. Is it? Okay. Yep. That's actually that's the line of demarcation. You got to have the assets. So it's not, what ends up happening too is get disappointed because it's trade deadline day and you start thinking big and you start seeing some of these names and the eyes go wide, and it doesn't necessarily line up here.
Well, I also don't necessarily like this take either. There is no franchise quarterback in next year's draft. We also didn't think so about this past year, and Jackson Dart looks pretty darn good. I mean, he's proven a lot of people wrong.
Though.
We
liked Dart.
I did not. I did not.
I love the idea that he was deemed as ready. He was a guy that was probably more polished than the rest of the guys, and he could definitely hit the downfield ball, and he's done that.
He could hit the downfield ball, but the processing and the play progression was handed to him by Ole Miss's system, and that was
do the same thing in the NFL. I hear what you're saying. I remember that. That conversation.
It's not as simple to do it in the NFL as it is in college. and Justin, I agree. Dart's tape wasn't great. He was wildly inconsistent. But again, he goes into the right system with the right coach, and Brian Daboll, I think, is a good coach. He's gotten a bad rap because of what the Giants have been doing, but Jackson Dart has proven a lot of people wrong right now. That's the point that I'm trying to make here. And next year's class has better prospects than last year, than this past draft. You just don't know. And just because you might think that you don't have that quarterback next year, or like, it doesn't mean that you just like, oh, screw it. You can't keep pushing that position down the road and thinking that you can sign a 41-year-old to turn 42 Aaron Rodgers next year to be your guy, because just because it's working this year doesn't mean it's going to work next year. You can't keep kicking that can down the road. The quarterback is the most important position in the league. And if you were to give up assets to go get Jacoby Myers this year, does that move literally make the Steelers a Super Bowl contender right now? No, it does not. It makes the Steelers better, but does it make them a legitimate Super Bowl contender? Do you think that the Steelers with Jacoby Myers right now could go into Highmark Stadium in Orchard Park and take down Josh Allen and the Bills? I don't think so.
Dan Finnegan comes in with the obligatory Will Howard defense. I was, the moment I brought up future quarterback, I knew this was coming. But Dan says, I'm just wondering why no one seems to think that Howard can't be that guy. Nobody thinks that, Dan, at least not to my knowledge. Certainly not anybody in the fan base. And that's because he's yet to take a snap in anger. I mean, I'm talking preseason. He's yet to take an NFL snap in anger. And now what he's doing, he's running scout team. So he's not getting any experience. He's not getting a chance to show anything. That's why the timing of that finger injury of his was just so bad out there in Latrobe. But he's going to have an opportunity. He's not going anywhere. They're not about to cut him. So he'll be out there for, OTAs and mini camp and everything else next year. Now, he's not going to slot in as having some sort of real opportunity entering the 2026 season because he lost all this time. But that doesn't mean, you've given up on him. What it means, Dan, more than anything, and I want to turn this whole show into something about future quarterbacks here because we're in the middle of a pretty interesting season unto itself. But you have to have quantity to go with the quality to end up with the player that you want. The example I keep citing here is New England. How many guys they go through, Chris, post Brady? Young guys. I'm not talking about bringing in like veteran space fillers or whatever. How many young guys did they go through?
A few.
A few.
I mean, Mac Jones being probably one of the more prominent ones, but
he was. Mac, he's the future. You don't have to anoint them the way we did with Kenny Pickett. All of us did. I did too. You don't have to anoint them and say, this is the one. You don't have to do that. In fact, you're probably going to end up being wrong if you do that, unless you just happen to have Joe Burrow walk through your door, as opposed to Mark Cuban.
I mean, I understand. Again, I think people get caught up in this day, and they want the team to make a move. And last year, fans were more satisfied because they got Mike Williams ahead of the deadline. They needed a receiver. And what did Mike Williams do? Like, almost nothing. He made a couple of nice plays.
Well, he won one game. He won the game, which is a pretty big impact. But
I agree. But there was also a reason why he never became that guy that people expected him to be. And I'm putting two and two together here. When the Steelers, when you wonder why Mike Williams didn't become more and more involved, and then you see at his young age that he just decides to, I'm done playing football. Like, you got to wonder about the want to. It's just because a move is made doesn't mean that it's going to be the right move. And that also could be like, listen, like we like Jacoby Myers, but we were only willing to give up a certain pick to get him. And obviously that wasn't it. The Jaguars gave a higher price that the Raiders were willing to accept. And it is what it is.
And try this one more time. We're going to move on from this topic. When Bill says, did you change your mind since yesterday on no trade being better? It's not about trade or no trade. That's not the discussion here. It's what were the options that he had in the real world? What were the actual options that Omar Khan had? We don't have that answer. So you either have to trust the guy that he didn't have any good trade options, or you have to go along with or not go along with his vision that he doesn't want to give up draft picks unless he gets reasonable and fair value for them. That's it. It's not about, I woke up today, I'm Omar Khan, and I said, I am going to make no trades today, and I'm going to make Bill mad. Let's talk about what Tomlin had to say today before I dig myself an even deeper hole.
But I also understand why people wanted to talk about the trade deadline too.
No, I get that. It's a fair subject. It could have been a really newsy, eventful day that would have been uplifting because they would have said, "Aha! Now Calvin Austin goes to a 3." You don't know what kind of deals would have been out there. I mean, Crave says here that Jacoby Myers wouldn't have been used enough for a 4th and 6th rounder, especially as a rental for half a season. That is accurate. That's why I say, if you really want to form an opinion of your own, whatever it happens to be, go look at the other trades that were made and say, is that something that you really wanted? Is that something that you were willing to do to fulfill your Tuesday trade deadline day? Mark Cunningham says, yeah, Lord help us if Metcalf goes down. Just saying. I agree with that.
I do. I mean, listen, I understand the wanting to get a receiver as an insurance policy for if Metcalf goes down with an injury, because we saw what happened with George Pickens last year and we saw how it affected the receiver room. And that was the fear. I get it. I understand it. And yes, I still think the Steelers need to be deeper at receiver. I also understand the Steelers not wanting to part with this vision that they have. I'm telling you right now, I've had conversations with people on the inside. They are tired of kicking the can down the road at quarterback. They just are.
That's it. So this is PGB here says, being cheap for what though, DK? This isn't about, how does this have to do with being cheap?
It has nothing to do with being cheap.
Zero. There's nothing about expenses here. You're holding on to draft picks. That's not being cheap. That has nothing to do with being cheap. I'm not even sure how else to respond to that.
What was the conversation going into the draft this past year? How do the Steelers get back into the second round? Because they didn't have the second round pick because they parted with it to go get
we
DK
only care
Metcalf.
about that when the draft actually comes up, though. In season, we can give out the picks like candy. Paul Weber says here, how long is Roman Wilson going to be? We have the obligatory Roman Wilson question. How long is Roman Wilson going to be in the Tomlin doghouse after the bonehead remark today? Never mind the bonehead fumble.
So
he described that as boneheaded.
Yeah.
If you ever want to light Tomlin up and get him to go totally out of all PC range and everything, put the ball on the ground.
Oh, man.
Do that. Or better yet, jump up into the air to give the other team a chance to take the ball from you.
Yeah, it's it's funny because Tomlin doesn't often call his players out in public settings like that. But usually whenever he does, it's usually been because I remember asking him, I think it was in the 22 season when Gunnar Olszewski fumbled a punt return against the Patriots. And that kind of cost him the game a little bit. And that wasn't even his first fumble in a very, very early part of the season. And he pretty much, he did not hold back in terms of Gunner's probably going to lose his job, and then for that to happen, even in the game that they won, for him to just flat out call it a boneheaded move. And I thought that was, I literally had to hold myself from laughing. It was funny.
Ashland Gibbs reminds us that the draft is in Pittsburgh, and maybe the Steelers will make some big trade to move up for a good quarterback. A bunch of teams decided not to make moves today, not just the Steelers, meaning almost all of them. And we can talk about wide receiver and wide receiver depth. I swear we're going to go back to the Tomlin thing. But in this past game, in Sunday, and not that this was some offensive pure model for how the Steelers want to perform, but the tight ends caught 10 passes and the wide receivers caught 8. That's actually the way this thing is supposed to go. And you saw guys getting targeted, tight ends getting targeted downfield. Pat Fryermuth made a couple of nice plays. Jonnu Smith had the bad drop early on, made up for it later. That's probably your offense, meaning if there's no DK Metcalf. And I think that was going to be your offense without him anyway. Because like Chris was just saying, when they brought in Mike Williams, they were looking for somebody who could be George Pickens' insurance. Okay, so Williams comes in. They didn't like something. And maybe that's what led Mike to retire after the season, is maybe they saw something in his desire level or his want to or whatever where they were just like, So he does win the one game for them in Landover against the Commanders. Doesn't get used hardly at all after that, even though he ended up making some other pretty good catches. I thought that whole thing was really strange. But to Chris's point, whoever it is that they were going to bring in that regard, there's a really good chance that that player was going to end up getting utilized in the same way, and at which point you've given out the 4th and the 6th rounder. So you have the guys that you have, and you have Marcus Valdez-Scantling in now. He's just a practice squad guy for the moment, but there's some insurance there to be had. There's something there. It didn't cost the Steelers any assets at all.
Nope.
So they're piling up draft picks. They're not going to let go of the draft picks here. Mike says the same thing here. It's similar to what Kyle Dubas is doing with the Penguins. You go ahead and make the playoffs, guys. Go nuts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, get into the Stanley Cup playoffs for the first time in 4 years. That'd be great. I'm just not giving up draft picks to help you get there. I'll give up something else. I'll give up a current asset. I'll give up, the Penguins are sitting on, I believe it's 12 million, 13 million in cap space. They can part with that. That's easy. But they're not going to give up future assets. And that's very much a factor. Why wouldn't you want it to be a factor, as a long-term fan of the franchise? You're not just a fan in 2025.
Yeah, and again, I keep bringing up the quarterback here because the quarterback is, Aaron Rodgers is playing like he's providing quality quarterback play now. But quality quarterback play a lot of the time doesn't win you a Super Bowl. It can, but it's rare. You need to have a franchise quarterback. You just do. You look at the history of this league, that's what you need. And that's why even in a league that is, and we can get over to the crossover with baseball and the whole salary cap versus non-salary cap, that is why for all the baseball people that don't understand, we have these dynasties in the NFL, because there can be one player that makes that kind of an impact on a franchise, right, and can help you win multiple championships, because literally every time the ball is touched on offense, that's the guy touching the ball. Like every time the ball is snapped, that guy is touching the ball, whether he goes and hands it to the running back or he throws it to somebody else, that guy is in charge. And that guy has that. No position in sports has a bigger impact. You need to have that position. The Steelers are tired of kicking the can down the road on this. They're tired of the 1 year options. They're tired of this stuff. They want to get that guy. And the best way to do that while also trying to remain competitive is to load up on draft picks and possibly go make a move, just like the Chiefs did when they went and got Mahomes.
Swinging back to the defensive side and the stuff that was talked about at the Tomlin press conference, and that is where we're swinging back to. Williams says, hey, DK, with Mike Tomlin committing to the safety position, what does the rotation look like now? Is it going to be similar to Sunday? This isn't anything that the Steelers need to advertise. You saw Jalen Ramsey there. You saw the looks that were given with Kyle Duggar. You saw Juan Thornhill on a sideline. You saw things change. You saw a lot of things change. This is a lot of the material that Chris has been putting up on the app over the past 48 hours, the written material. has been on this subject with really detailed data breakdowns, formations for you total football nerds, and you know who you are. He's one of them. I'm not exempting him from that. To be able to do that much, to change that much, I'll say it again, was impressive on the part of the coaching staff. Also impressive, obviously, on the part of the players who had to go out there and get it done. But they did. What is there any aspect, Chris, of what you saw against the Colts, including notably Ramsey, where he was, where you say, that's it, that's going to stick, that one's going to stick?
Well, at least for right now, I mean, Mike Tomlin already came out and he said today that Jalen Ramsey's sticking at safety exclusively. He actually used the word exclusively. Now, part of that is because of injuries. Chuck Clark's coming back from an illness. Jabril Peppers is working his way back from a quadricep injury. So you have a couple of safeties down. Deshaun Elliott's obviously on IR. So you're down several guys. But when you look at the way that they played, and Tomlin talked about it today, it was not just the actual play, but the communication between Ramsey and Duggar. And then we're talking pre-snap and post-snap, the way that they both, there was like an almost instant chemistry, and that was a huge, I mean, and Duggar talked about it after the game. Ramsey played a big role in that. Like, Ramsey helped Duggar along throughout the week in terms of learning the defense, in terms of learning the scheme or the game plan of what they were going to be doing against the Colts. Now, it could be different against the Chargers. I don't expect it to be the exact same breakdown of coverages that you can find on their app as of what they did with the Colts. And Mike Tomlin said it today. It is opponent specific, and it's also reaction to what he's seeing in real time and what was ailing them, what they were doing well. But when you talk about the safety position, like right now, that it's almost like that. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That was a great performance from both Ramsey and Duggar. Duggar I thought he was really solid. I mean, he played all but one snap, and he didn't get exposed. That's
stunning to me. I'm sorry. That is still stunning that happened.
Yeah.
This isn't like when they brought Sean Spence back off the couch. Spence had already been in the system. Spence had already, and safety, you're not talking about it. This isn't a position where you just go out there and wing it.
No, you have to learn. I mean, listen, every team, like, yes, you can like Google cover 4 and then look at like layouts of what cover 4 is. Every team teaches it differently. Every team has little tiny details on how they teach the specific match coverages, and we're talking about every single coverage. We're talking about cover 0, cover 1, cover 2, cover 2 man, cover 3, all these coverages. They're all taught differently, and they all come with different language and terminology. Literally, there has to be almost a translator, and Jabril Peppers even talked about like kind of helping be a translator for when Duggar came in, because he understood the language that the Patriots spoke in. And then there's the language that the Steelers speak in, and then Peppers is literally that translator for Duggar. And so for that to happen, for there to be that translation so that he understands what he's doing when the Steelers call specific coverage, whatever it is, and then Ramsey's right there to remind him, okay, remember on this one, we're doing this, this, and this. We're responsible for this, this, and that, whatever it is. Then they are able to go out and execute it at a high level against the number 1 offense in the league. That's impressive.
Yeah, the whole thing is, including the communication that happened very plainly between the coaching staff and the players in the week leading up to it, because, you know, our friend Skunkworks here says they maybe they dumbed down the defense enough for him. You can do that to an extent. It's still really, really impressive.
Yes.
That's everything. Actually, everything on the defensive side was impressive. I have to ask you, Chris, since you were over there today for the Tomlin press conference. Mm-hmm. Did he, you know, walk in there? Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
A little extra pep in his step.
A little bit. He's prone to that sort of thing. You remember the whole highly compensated remark. Yeah. He'll do that.
So, you know, whenever people are tuning in to watch it live, I'm sure on the team's YouTube channel, you know, you see Bob Pompiani and Misty Matthews talking before. and we can hear the camera girl in the background, like letting them know, okay, Pomp's talking right now and everything. Tomlin was up at the front of the room cracking jokes about like, oh, Pomp's going to talk for 20 minutes.
That's so not him. That is not him, man.
I mean, he was, yeah. So Tomlin was in a good mood today.
That's the Sharkies version of Tomlin that most people don't get to see.
Sharkies version of Tomlin.
I'll leave that. I'll leave that as the spoken out loud inside joke on this particular program here. John Malesko wants to know if there's any chance that the Steelers go after Asante Samuel. Seems like he would fix the slot corner. Ramsey at safety, Eccles on the outside. They've got the guys that they've got. I think that's going to be one of the pieces of the message that ends up being delivered to the team this week is look around. That's your partner. That's your teammate. That's who you're going into battle with. Get used to them. Learn how to talk to them. Learn how to motivate them. Learn how to read them. Love each other. Believe in each other. Do all that stuff. But that's one of the things that happens really in any sport at a trade deadline. Once all the dust settles in that room, and I have athletes relay this sort of thing to me for years now. You look around and you go, all right, here we go. This is it. This is it. There's not going to be another Kyle Duggar walking through that door this week.
Yeah.
It's going to be, this is the team that you have. Now let's figure out, instead of looking for external solutions, even hypothetically, let's just make this guy better at what he does.
Yeah, I think, I also think, like, well, first off, there is still the possibilities of adding externally, but they're rare.
They're prayers,
yeah. Well, it's like this. It's like the situation where a player is like near the end of their contract. They're on a team that has no chance of making the playoffs or has already been eliminated from playoff contention, and the team does him a solid by cutting him so that he can go sign with a contender. Like that kind of stuff happens, but we're talking like one or two players that this happens with every year. It's not like this. There's this slew of players that end up getting cut at the very end of the year that the Steelers can go and then have, they can just pluck from wherever. So there's that possibility. But yes, ultimately, this is the group that they have. This is what they're going to go with. And I think when you look at post-trade deadline now, yes, I still think the biggest concern is if DK Metcalf goes down with an injury, you're kind of screwed at receiver. That's the biggest thing. And I understand fans' frustration with not getting Jacoby Myers or another receiver. I get it. I understand it. I also understand Omar Khan not wanting to part with the assets to get those guys. So, because I think in Omar's mind, the future is way more important than going all in. And listen, just to throw this out there, the Steelers have never come out and said, we're all in for 2025. The moves that they've made in terms of acquiring Ramsey, getting Aaron Rodgers, all this stuff, they've never said we're all in with these moves.
That's been a media narrative. Suggested it. Yeah, they've never even suggested that. Now, some of the players have talked about it. When I was speaking with Jonnu Smith about the message, the combined message that he and Jalen Ramsey had for the team this past Saturday night, Jonnu said that it came up, that they talked about it. The players talked about it. Well, they're living it.
Yeah.
They couldn't give two craps who the future quarterback is of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And they're around 30 years old. They're here to win now. In fact, that was a big part of both players' message. Was this isn't the time to be wondering whether or not I left it all out there on the field today. Jonnu, part of Jonnu's message, just his, was about sleeping at night. Did you put it all out there? Because if you did, regardless of how you did, and he obviously had the drop and whatever, he knows he left it all out on the field. And so they see it that way, and they absolutely should see it that way. They're not here to develop future talent and stockpile draft picks or whatever.
Yeah, those players should be all in. But when we're talking about like what the Rams did to go all in to go win that Super Bowl in 2021, that's a franchise that's going all in. When
Man, can you imagine if they didn't pull out that last drive? I mean, you're killing yourself for about a decade straight.
Which is funny because that just goes to show with how well run the Rams are, because they're still contending. Like, after doing all of that stuff, they've bounced back, and they were this close to beating the Eagles in their stadium in snow. You know, that same Eagles team that went on to win the Super Bowl. The Rams are a good team, and they've stayed a good team. Like, when everybody thought they were going to drop off, they've bounced back. So that just goes to show how well run the Rams are. But yes, the players should obviously be all in, but we're talking about, like, we're parting with first round picks and second round picks and all this stuff to get all the players to load up this roster right now. When Aaron Rodgers, for as good as he's been this year, is your quarterback, you're not all in. It's just he's not that guy anymore.
Yeah, that's what Justin says here. If you're not all in for 2025, you get Aaron Rodgers, you trade, you give the WR1, meaning Metcalf, the richest contract in franchise history. You trade for Ramsey, you bring in Slay. Is that not all in? No, because all in is about asset management. It's not about perception. It's not about how old the players are. It's asset management. Look at what was given away to get those players. Rodgers is playing for the equivalent of a bag of chips at get-go.
Seriously.
He is. Okay, $10 million in the NFL for a quarterback is, he might as well be doing community service. The rest of these guys, you know, they committed to Metcalf because they needed that type of player for the long term. That's not an all-in thing.
That money was going to go to George Pickens or DK Metcalf. It was going to go somewhere.
And you might as well give it to the guy who's not nuts.
Yeah.
So you have Ramsey and Jonnu come in the Minkah trade. The Steelers' course with Minkah had run itself. It was out. They found a trade they felt was going to make them a better football team in the now, and they felt that they were very clearly giving $18 million a year to Minkah to just be an ordinary safety, which is what he was the last couple of years. So that's asset management. That's not all in. Chris just gave it away here. It's the Rams. Here's all of our draft picks for all of your players and all of our cap space for years to come. Here's everything. Here's all our chips. Let's get AD a championship.
Yeah.
And they did. Aaron Donald's a champion.
Mm-hmm. No, all in is what, for those who, again, to do the hockey parallels here, the way Jim Rutherford was general managing the Penguins.
That's all in.
That's all in. They didn't even bother with the draft. It was like, we'll just
what picks you want? Here, have a pick. You have a pick. Have our first rounder.
We'll keep using those first round picks to keep our NHL roster at a level that can continuously contend for a Stanley Cup. And good for Rutherford because it got them 2 straight. But man, they just ran out of gas in that third year. But
we just crossed over 5,000 viewers live.
That's crazy, man. What's
that all about?
Bus driver Al, by the way, is right. McVay's a genius. I mean, he is. He's a phenomenal football player.
Don't get Chris started on these. He has his guys.
Yeah.
By the way, one of his guys is Shane Steichen.
Yeah, he's a good coach.
He's a really good coach. He also just had his hat handed to him.
McVay has his hat handed to him every now and then too. It happens to the best of them. It really does.
That is true.
The thing that I enjoy more than anything when it comes to like who the good coaches are not just coaches who are really, really good when it comes to schematics and who are innovative but it's guys who also know how to set a culture. And McVay has obviously done that because it's not just, I mean, dude, he has turned Puka Nacua into a nuclear weapon in that offense.
Puka was also grossly underestimated heading into that draft. Both things can be true.
That's true, but he wasn't like he was a first or second round pick. This guy was chosen way later in the draft, and he has found a way to perfectly utilize, but to set the culture, to have young guys come in and to be contributors. That's the mark of a good coach, and that's why McVay is one of my favorites. But again, when you're talking about, to go back to the point where you're talking about going all in, you're giving away future assets to add to this team right now. the Steelers are obviously not all in because they would have given whatever they could to go get Jacoby Myers. They would have given away more to go get Quinn and Williams if they wanted to really just be like, you know what, screw it. We're going to have Cam Hayward, Quinn and Williams. We're going to, good luck.
Take all our stuff. But that's not the way. It's not the way this season had ever been scripted. Chad Moore is going to bring us back down to earth here as we wind down today. What's the 5,000 high? 5,000 people. Did you miss the part where Mark Cuban walked in on us earlier?
Why are there 5,000 people?
I don't know. That's what she's asking too. Why are there? Oh, trade deadline. Chris has it here. They think they're going to find out information from us.
Or they're just here to complain about
it. Chad says, how do the Steelers prepare to win the game against the Chargers? Do you focus on their lack of tackles? For anybody who doesn't know, LA has lost both of their starting tackles on their offense, and you try to score at least 30. Well, the obvious correct answer to that, Chad, is you want to do both and much more, and have Danny Smith reinvent the kickoff procedure. You also want that. Okay. But I hear a team missing tackles, and I picture more of what we saw Sunday, where TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, all capital letters after that game, and Nick Herbig can be their best selves. You can have all three of them out there at times. You can move them around at times. We saw a little bit of that on Sunday as well. We saw so many good things from this defense on Sunday. And then from there, you want to make sure that the quarterback, who has the number one count on passing yards for the year, is at least made to feel uncomfortable. That was the thing that came across with the Steelers for me, Chris, with Daniel Jones. It was almost as if they were going to the line of scrimmage and they were holding up a giant photo of Daniel Jones's head in a Giants helmet and said, "This is what we think of you. We're going to come after you as if you're still wearing that blue thing." And they did. I mean, they didn't exactly tee off, like they weren't bludgeoning him. But when you get back there that many times and you're that disruptive and you're forcing him out of where he wants to be, that's the Steelers at their best. And I think that's what they are going to have to do against LA.
Yeah. Listen, I think they would never say this, but I think the Steelers' game plan was stop Jonathan Taylor at all costs and make Daniel Jones, who has been a wild disappointment in his NFL career until this season, make Daniel Jones beat us. And that's exactly it played out exactly as that would have thought. Now, again, they would never admit that, and I could be wrong about it. But either way, they wanted to make it's clear they didn't want Jonathan Taylor beating them. They wanted Daniel Jones to have to throw his way to get the Colts to score points. When it comes to Justin Herbert, it's a little bit different because the Chargers are a really good running football team, and they're a really good running football team without Amarian Hampton and without Najee Harris.
Right.
That's impressive. That's Greg Roman, the former Ravens offensive coordinator.
That's really something.
Yeah. So then on top of that, you have Justin Herbert, which I checked this morning. He's actually now barely second behind Daniel Jones in passing. But either way, Justin Herbert is still a very dangerous quarterback. And Tomlin even talked about it today. Herbert, the last time they played them was like on one leg and couldn't move. And the Steelers kind of got lucky with that because they could attack him in different ways, knowing that he couldn't move. That's not going to be the case this time.
Yeah, that's a very different scouting report. You can throw that film out.
Yeah, exactly.
He really couldn't. He was really hampered.
Yeah, he had an ankle injury. But
in that game here, I'm not sure what it was. It was lower body for sure, and he couldn't move. He couldn't get out of anything. The corporal here says here, yeah, but the Penguins were all in for a lot of years. And how many championships did they win? Well, they won 2 more with this group, 3 total with the Sidney Crosby time
really
span.
Upset about that?
But no, he's not. I think without speaking for him here, I think the point is, well, yeah, they were all in, and look what it got them. They got 2 additional Stanley Cups. I just don't think this was the time You know,
Okay.
I feel good about all in investing when you want to know what for me is all in investing? You know when you do that?
Hmm.
When you're the Bengals and you get Burrow.
Yes.
Okay. That's when you say, all right, we've got our guy. Instead, these morons didn't even protect him. It couldn't even occur to them that you'd want to keep him upright. Never mind, you know, they put all of their assets into their wide receivers and to an extent into the tight end position. They have one player on the defensive side of the ball. To this day, how many years has he been there? To this day, they've got Trey Hendrickson and nobody on that side of the ball.
Else. They traded somebody else. They traded one of their linebackers to the Cowboys today. So they're even worse.
Yeah, that's, man.
I mean,
I'm so glad they're in the division, though. If you're going to have one team in football, if they're going to be blessed, this is how everybody else feels about Paul Skeens coming to the Pirates. You know what I mean? Like they're like, oh, thank God he's there. I mean, those games don't matter.
Yeah. To use the Penguins parallel here again, the Penguins were going all in when they had Sidney Crosby in his prime.
Yep. That's when you do it.
That's when you do it. You go all in when you have a superstar, all-time player that is in his prime. That's when you go for it all the time. The Steelers need to have now. The real complaint when we talk about the Steelers, when they should go all in, when they shouldn't, is why didn't they go more all in whenever Ben Roethlisberger was their quarterback, or whenever
on the defensive side,
or when they had the killer bees, Why didn't they do more to shore that up? That's the real time.
They needed an ordinary pass defense. Instead, they set themselves up to get picked apart by Tom Brady. Every winter here. Danny Blake gets the last words. His all apologies to Alex Highsmith after my comments last week on this show. I said that we should trade him, and he absolutely proved me wrong. Outstanding performance this week. Respect where it's due. Respect back to you, Danny. Not everybody does that in the year 2025.
No.
Okay, they just don't. Everybody's always right all the time, and nobody ever adjusts to anything here. Hodge says he wants to see more Nick Herbig. I don't know. I mean, he was at what, 40 snaps, 40 plus?
Yeah, 40 on the dot. Highsmith was at 40. Highsmith is at 48, so they were pretty close.
And TJ was a little bit higher than that. Yeah. And that's a rotation.
That's what you want.
That's what you want. You don't want to see all three of those guys. Yeah.
Well, you don't. What you don't want is you don't want Herbig or really any of them to be like 20 something snaps less than the other two. Like that's it. Doesn't matter who it is.
Guys, download our app. Download the DK Pittsburgh Sports app. That's free. All you do is you go to your Apple device, your Android device, go to the various store, App Store, Google Play. Bring the thing in. It's free. Take a look at it wherever else you'll see that there are ads on it. You'll go, oh, God, ads. You're going to try to open up the comments. You're going to see that you can't. I'm just being honest with you here, which probably doesn't help, but I'm going to do it anyway. And you're going to think, man, this could be a really nice app if not for those annoyances. Well, I'll hook you up myself with the premium version of that app. If you email me directly, dk@dkpittsburghsports.com. One just came in. That's actually pretty funny. Mike Ondeko, I just watched you throw in there on my screen here. Do what Mike just did. Okay. Email me, dk@dkpittsburghsports.com, and I will get back to you with a massive discount that nobody is saying no to. I just want you to have the good version of the app. Okay, and that's the way to get it is through this massive discount. So do that right now. Chris, final thoughts on the head coach today.
Again, head coach Mike Tomlin. I thought he was beaming a little bit more, and rightfully so. His team just played a really, really good football game. But I also understand that Tomlin remains singularly focused, and that means that he's not dwelling too much on that victory of the Colts. He understands that he has a tough challenge ahead with the Chargers. It is a tough challenge, and I'm curious to see how when he's taking this seriously, how they move forward, how they prepare and eventually execute that against the Chargers. And again, the Tomlin thing about I like to go shopping, and the comment he made about the trade deadline, Tomlin also likes to have his fun behind that podium too, and so it doesn't surprise me that they didn't make a move today. So it is what it is.
Juju earns himself a permanent ban, meaning like for his life. And then if he gets resurrected and comes back in a second life, he's also banned for that one for referring to Pittsburgh as Pitt. Can Pitt just trade TJ? No, because TJ graduated college a long time ago. That's why.
Wisconsin.
It was Wisconsin. It wasn't even Pitt. Always indefensible, always worthy of a lifetime ban. Guys, we'll be back with all the rest of our programming tomorrow. Go get the app. Just go do that like right now. I'm sitting right here answering your emails, at least after I get to Mike's that just came in. And we'll see all the rest of you tomorrow. Thanks for the massive audience today. Wow. And then we're going to cue the outro here that she's not putting up. Where is it? I don't know where it is.